Hi, Georgie. I'm Pennywise, the dancing clown.
It was on the brink of total disaster, way before Pennywise even became a legend. It's quite understandable that when people hear IT, the first thing that pops into their mind is the creepy clown with the twisted smile and those insanely sharp teeth. But what if I told you the real horror wasn't in the movie, but behind the scenes? It might seem like a childhood story, but making IT was anything but child's play. From the crazy production difficulties to Tim Curry, aka Pennywise, pushing through traumatic experiences, the making of IT wasn't quite the catch. And today, we'll find out what makes the behind the scenes more horrifying and maybe even scarier than the horror you saw on screen. Before we get into the juicy stuff, let's quickly set the stage. The 1990 It wasn't exactly your usual movie. Instead, it was a two-part TV miniseries shown on network television over 2 nights. It was basically a scare session split into chunks to build up the suspense for the audience at home. It is based on Stephen King's famous novel, one of his biggest and creepiest, by the way, that tells the story of a group of kids who come face to face with the horrors lurking in their small town, all centered around the terrifying shape-shifting clown, Pennywise. Fast forward to the movie adaptation. The author, Stephen King, wasn't exactly thrilled with the whole miniseries idea. For those who've read Stephen King's novel, you know it's massive, humongous, and packed with way more plot than you can shake a stick at. But when it came to the movie, he couldn't get them to produce everything that was contained in it. And that's because of these guys, the ABC network. The plan was to pack every creepy corner of the massive novel into an epic 8 to 10 hour miniseries, split into 4 2-hour episodes on ABC. Horror legend George A. Romero was even ready to take the director's chair for this monstrous vision. But like every good horror story, ABC got cold feet. They freaked out over the size, cost, and commitment, chopping the epic miniseries down to just 4 hours. Characters disappeared, plot lines vanished into thin air, and all those wild cosmic elements, gone. King wasn't the only one upset about the whole thing. Romero was equally frustrated. The cuts zapped all the magic out of the story, leaving him with no choice but to walk away from the whole project. Luckily, producer Tommy Lee Wallace jumped in with a tighter script that squeezed all the essentials into ABC's safer, bite-sized 2-night version. King was watching from the sidelines as others chopped up his grand novel to fit the schedule. He wasn't cheering it on, but he wasn't totally against the miniseries either. At least, he never publicly said so. Now, the network's standards and practices, on the other hand, just wouldn't let the movie producers have any sort of peace. A BC didn't just control when the movie aired, they played the director of what horrors made the screen, making sure nothing too scary slipped past. ABC was super heavy on the family-friendly vibe. They wanted zero extreme gore, no graphic violence, and definitely nothing that would terrify kids into a lifetime of therapy on a Friday night. Which is kind of hilarious when you remember the story revolves around a killer clown that basically feeds on children's worst nightmares. I mean, isn't the whole point of Pennywise to be downright terrifying? But nope, ABC's standards and practices said they needed to be scared gently. So how do you make a scary show that actually terrifies people, but still stays family-friendly enough to sneak past those eagle-eyed TV censors? Well, figuring that out wasn't exactly a walk in the park for Wallace. The team had no choice but to juggle the impossible, keep the scares intact, but tone them down just enough so the show wouldn't get banned or mysteriously vanish from the airwaves. This meant the crew had to get seriously creative during shooting. Less blood and guts, fewer jump-out-of-your-seats visuals, and way more eerie vibes that worked through suggestion and spooky atmosphere. One glaring scene took an express trip to the cutting room was the cop carrying Georgie's lifeless body to his parents, because apparently that was too much crying for a family Friday night. And believe it or not, the Blood Brothers scene got the axe too, because back then, everyone was jittery about the AIDS epidemic, so they sidestepped any awkward real-world scares. As overburdening as it was to tone down some scenes just to stay on ABC's good side, cancelling the whole show wasn't really an option. so they had to tough it out and keep the terror going, but in the most careful way possible, safe to say. The horror we saw on TV was the barest minimum. Speaking of merging storylines, the casting challenge was real. The miniseries had to find both the childhood versions of the main characters and their grown-up counterparts. And it wasn't exactly easy. Producers spent a lot of time squinting at hopefuls, trying to find kids and adults who looked like they could actually be the same person decades apart. The casting for IT had to juggle telling two stories at once: the kids growing up in Derry during the 50s, and those same characters as adults in the 80s. So basically, they had to build two separate casts and make sure both felt like the same people. Same bond, same baggage, same scars. The team finally nailed down their lineup, but Wallace still needed the cast to feel like a real, tight-knit group. So he went through the financial stress of hauling the entire cast together for a few days just to build that bond. All that casting work done, and yet no one for the role of Pennywise. You'd think nailing Pennywise would be a breeze. I mean, it's just a guy in clown makeup, right? What's the worst that could happen? Well, turns out finding the perfect guy for the spookiest clown in Derry was full of unexpected challenges. It wasn't just about the makeup. It was about finding someone who could terrify you and still make you want to keep watching without running for the hills. The producers went on a real hunting spree, trying out everyone from Malcolm McDowell to Roddy McDowell, and even Alice Cooper. Eventually, Tim Curry came into the picture, and honestly, he was impossible to ignore. With the previous roles he had played, he definitely owned the character, Pennywise. But the thing is, Tim Curry absolutely hated makeup after his torturous time playing the devil in the 1985 movie Legend. We're talking 5+ hours of red paint, fiberglass horns, and prosthetics that made him feel like a demonic Christmas tree. He swore off heavy makeup roles forever, so naturally, he was super skeptical about taking on Pennywise. After some serious soul-searching and maybe a lot of bribes, he finally agreed to cast, but on the condition that the makeup be kept as simple as possible. When all was said and done, Tim Curry turned out to be the perfect Pennywise. He brought such a unique, creepy energy that his performance still haunts nightmares. But don't think it was all laughs and pie-throwing behind the scenes. Playing a terrifying clown is tough work. In fact, Tim Curry's experience pretty much sums up how intense the shoot was. First off, Tim Curry's clown costume and makeup took hours to apply every single day. Those thick layers of paint and stiff, uncomfortable costumes weren't exactly designed for comfort. It was hot, itchy, and sometimes, honestly, a little terrifying for Tim himself. He struggled with panic attacks and feelings of suffocation buried under all that makeup and costume. Some say he pushed himself to the edge, fueled by the pressure of playing such a bone-chilling villain. The crew noticed his struggles, but had little choice but to let him ride that fine line, because that raw, real-life discomfort made his performance all the more unforgettable. But all these didn't stop him from delivering an iconic performance. I mean, the show had to go on. Even the sound producer, Richard Bellis, got tangled up in all the drama. Richard and Wallace barely saw eye to eye on the music choices, especially when it came to the theme song. Could it be that Wallace was just playing the classic game of transfer of aggression, using Richard as his favourite punching bag for all the frustration he experienced? I guess we'll never know. Remember how ABC was all about keeping the miniseries family-friendly? Yeah, that vibe even stretched all the way to the ending. The producers had their epic finale all mapped out, but ABC waved their censorship wand and said, not so fast. So, the grand climax had to do a delicate dance, a less terrifying showdown, and a mildly unsettling family dinner. Now, when you hear about the epic scares and iconic scenes in the 1990 IT miniseries, you might imagine Hollywood throwing endless cash at it like it was the next big blockbuster. But nope, this magic was pulled off on a tight budget, at least by TV standards at the time. ABC allocated about $12 million for the whole miniseries, which might sound like a lot, but for a sprawling, effects-heavy horror saga, it was actually just double the typical TV movie budget back then, which is still pretty lean considering everything they wanted to do. This meant the producers and crew had to get super creative. I'm talking practical effects instead of fancy CGI wizardry, animatronic monsters that occasionally decided to take a Friday off, makeup that tested every actor's patience, and shooting scenes fast enough to make your head spin, all while trying not to break the bank. The budget was so tight that Mike's grey hair was basically baby powder expertly applied with a toothbrush. The whole crew turned improvisation into an art form because there was no way around those financial limits. And no one was left out in the stress. The chaotic shoot, long nights, and limited resources all meant that everyone was constantly stretched thin, squeezing scares out of every dollar. Director Wallace was right in the middle of everything, trying to keep it all together and make sure the show went on. He was juggling a lot, but somehow, he kept things from falling apart. Besides the tiny budget, the tech was stuck in 1990. No fancy CGI, just good old-fashioned makeup, puppets, and creaky animatronics. Take the giant spider monster at the end. It was huge, hard to manage, and broke down more than your old family car. Despite all this, the team's clever tricks made scares that still freak people out today. And honestly, it's pretty amazing how much they managed to do all these without a big movie budget or all the desired movie props. All the network pressure, casting chaos, production madness, and even Tim Curry's personal struggles combined to turn the 1990 IT into something unforgettable. The scares weren't just about flashy effects or gross-out moments. They came from the mood, the vibe, and a team that worked their tails off in exhausting conditions to bring real fear to your TV screen. And hey, despite its quirks and flaws, the 1990 IT scared the pants off a whole generation and is still a hot topic. Over 30 million people tuned in for the first episode, proof that sometimes a crappy miracle is all you need to make TV history. So, what do you think? Is Pennywise's creepy laugh enough to keep you up all night? Or does knowing the crazy challenges behind the scenes make this mini-series even scarier? Drop your thoughts in the comment. And if you enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications bell so you don't miss out on our next video.